Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head over to America once again, and we're going to return to a brewery that has featured on the channel a couple of times before. So the last two beers that I've had from this brewery were really interesting. The first one was a collaboration with a Swedish brewery. The second one was one of their own signature IPAs, and the one that we're going to have a look at today is a style that I very much enjoy, but not one that you come across all that often. So I have to say, I'm very, very curious to see how it turns out. So fingers crossed it's as good as the other beers we've had. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to go to a little place called Elmsford near White Plains to the north of Manhattan in New York State in New England in America, and we're going to have a look at my third beer involving Captain Lawrence Brewing Company. So this particular beer is called the Red Commander. It comes in at 6.5% ABV, and this one is a red IPA. Now, apparently this is just a more kind of malt-forward version of the Hop Commander, which is another of their signature IPAs. I still need to try that one, but I have seen it coming through Systembolaget here in Sweden a couple of times. But we got this beer again through Systembolaget, and it was released as part of the Tillfällig Sortiment, temporary sortiment, on the 14th of July 2021. So yeah, definitely cool to have another red IPA to review for you here on the channel. And as always, I'm very curious to see what this beer has in store for us, especially because the last beers that we had from Captain Lawrence were pretty damn solid actually. But yeah, let's see how we get on with this one then. So, as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Captain Lawrence Brewing Company before, and we will no doubt add more to that list in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the American beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to quite regularly, although not as regularly as I would like. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is massively appreciated. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then to tell you a little bit about Captain Lawrence Brewing Company. So Captain Lawrence Brewing Company, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Elmsford in New York State to the north of Manhattan in New York over in America. But they were founded back in 2006 by Scott Vaccaro, who had been a home brewer since 1995. But apparently he saw a friend's dad brewing beer and then asked if he could join in. So he actually brewed his first beer before he could legally drink in the US, because of course over there they have to wait till they're 21. None of this drinking at 16 like we have in Denmark and Sweden over here. But Scott went to university initially to study accountancy, but he later transferred to the University of California at Davis to study fermentation science, and during his time as a student he interned at the Adnams Brewery in England. Following his graduation, he went on to work at Sierra Nevada, who of course are very famous, and also for the now defunct Colorado Brewery in Danbury, Connecticut. But it was always in his mind that he wanted to start up his own company, and he did this a bit later on. So the first brewery they had was on Castleton Street in Pleasantville in New York, and this had a 20-barrel system, and they stayed there for about 5 years before they needed to expand, and this took them to their current location in Elmsford, New York, which was about 5 miles away from their old brewery. But they started brewing there in 2011, and it's equipped with a 40-barrel system, and they also have a smaller 7-barrel system for pilot brews, and they also have a far larger fermentation capacity in this new brewery as well. But they've also got a beer hall restaurant there and a tap room and things that you can visit, and if you look at the pictures of this thing, it is pretty impressive. The food menu there was pretty impressive as well actually, so maybe this is somewhere that I do need to go and visit on my my next trip over to the States. But I do have a beer tour planned with my good friend Dave and my other friend Josh as well, who will be looking forward to that. Maybe Tabor, who you've seen on the channel before, can join us with that as well. But yeah, that is something that hopefully we can do. Whether we visit Captain Lawrence or not, though, I'm not 100% sure. But these guys, as I say, have been exporting to Europe quite a lot recently. As of July 2021, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 1,060 different kinds of beer, according to Untappd. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about these guys for the moment. If you want to learn more about them, you can, of course, check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. And you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's crack on then and see how we get on with the beer. So just to let you have a little look at the artwork of this one before we open it up, as you can see, it's quite straightforward, but still quite tasteful and nicely done. There you can see the Captain Lawrence Brewing Company symbol on top of that, and I do like the nice hop flowers on this. But as you can see, Red Commander, 6.5% red IPA. This one, basically a more malt forward version of the Hop Commander IPA that they do. This one is hopped with Citra, Centennial and Bravo hops. Citra we know quite well. All three of these hops incidentally are American. Citra we know quite well. 14% alpha acid roughly. Big juicy mango notes. Some lemon limey kind of characters normally as well. Centennial, as we know, is quite a lemon forward hop, and that's about 12-13% alpha acid if memory serves me correctly. And Bravo is one that I've come across a few times, but you don't kind of find it all that often, and it's quite an interesting one. It's a more kind of green hop that rather than anything else. It's got quite a kind of sort of earthy herbal type vibe to it from what I remember, so I can see that working out quite well with a more malt forward IPA actually. Maybe Bravo is the bittering hop in this one. But yeah, it also uses Crystal and two-row malts, which are lovely malts from over in the States. But yeah, this is a 473 milliliter can, or for those of you watching the States, it's 1 American pint. I always make fun of the way the Americans measure things with fluid ounces and all that, because it just makes no sense. Just use the metric system. It's based on water, the universal solvent. But I complain about that in every American review that I do. But yeah, this is imported here to Sweden by Galatea, who are quite a big food company, of course. But yeah, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. Very curious to see what it has in store for us. And it also says that it's best before the 5th of the 5th, 2022. So I'm guessing when I drink this one, it's just a little bit over 2 months old, which is fairly decent for an American beer, especially when it's, it should be alright, especially when it's a slightly more malt forward IPA. I always think red IPAs need a little bit of time to just kind of mellow out, if you like. Otherwise, they're a bit too green in the beginning. But yeah, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. A 6.5% red IPA. So yeah, you have to remember as well that this style is of course related to the American red ales and the American ambers and stuff like this. I'm not sure exactly where the line is between an American amber and an American red and a red IPA. Obviously the IPA can be separated because of the the malt to hop ratios and things like this from a technical perspective. But yeah, flavour profile wise, I don't think there's all that much difference, to be honest with you. But yeah, let's just have a look at that then. It's lined up now, so my OCD is happy. Let's have a look at the beer itself. So yeah, this one, as I say, it's got a lovely kind of dark mahogany, almost ruby colour to it, and you kind of expect this from a red IPA, to be honest. But before the head disappears, you can see it poured with a solid finger of a frothy, I would say kind of fawn coloured head. I think fawn is a fair descriptor of this one, but there's 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass on this, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of that head there. But I mean, overall, it looks very nice. The beer is actually pretty clear, although it has, kind of it's got a sort of natural hazy vibe to it, if that makes sense. But yeah, you'll always get this when beers are kind of unfiltered and things like this. But it certainly looks the part of a red IPA, a lovely dark kind of mahogany colour. So remember, the colour of your beer is dependent on 1, the type of malts that you use. This determines the magnitude of your colour. With a red IPA, you would expect a slightly darker colour like this one. 2, the length of your wort boil is also going to play a role. The longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, thus you get a darker colour of beer. And any adjuncts and barrel aging will of course play a role as well. But in red IPAs, I don't think it's too common to add adjuncts and things like that. Maybe a little bit of brown sugar and things like that at most, but that is quite uncommon. So yeah, it certainly looks the part of a red IPA, this one. Nothing really untoward about it as well, but yeah, if you shine the light through this, it really develops a lovely kind of ruby tint. I'm not sure how well that's going to show up on the GoPro there, but if I put this up to the lights, it certainly looks very nice. But yeah, a nice dark mahogany colour, I think, is a good way to describe this one. So yeah, let's have a closer look at the aroma of this one and see how we go on. Nothing untoward about the appearance of this beer when you consider what style it is. But yeah, aroma time, let's go for it. Yeah, that's pretty nice. I've always been a big fan of the American like two-row and crystal malts. And we've got both of these in this one. You don't find those all that often over here. You know, quite often breweries are using the various German ones, like, you know, the you've got so many, like, you know, Münchner and Vienna malts and things like that. Vienna malts would be lovely in a red IPA, incidentally. So yeah, the aroma that comes out of this one is quite typical for the style. I've had a good few of these over the years, but as I say, I don't get them nearly as often as I would like. But yeah, the aroma of this one is very, very nice. Straight up. You can smell it's got everything you would want. So let's break this down for you a bit and describe it more succinctly, I guess we could say. But yeah, backbone of this beer then. So the backbone of this beer is undoubtedly like a sort of brown bread. You know, you get that lovely kind of brown, almost wholemeal bready character coming out of this one. You certainly get a kind of slightly woody undertone to it, maybe even a little touch of a nutty character, but I think the nuttiness would be very, very minimal in this one. But yeah, a nice kind of smooth brown bready character in this beer, I would say. But yeah, the aroma that comes out of this one, I think, is very, very nice, I have to say. So yeah, lovely kind of smooth brown bready, wholemeal bready kind of backbone to this one. A nice kind of big bread crusty type quality to it, a bit of a woody, nutty undertone as well. And yeah, that's kind of what you would expect from this beer. You do want a bit of breadiness and a bit of woodiness and things out of these. But on top of that, there's certainly a nice little bit of a sweet caramel to this one. You can smell a good little bit of a more kind of biscuity quality out of it. And you're going to get that from both the two-row and the crystal malts in this. Both of those will be responsible for that slightly more oily, caramelly brown sugar, and also for that more kind of McVitie's digestive, biscuity sort of thing out of this one. I don't know how good a reference that is for American viewers. I honestly can't remember if you get McVitie's digestives in the States, because it's been a good couple of years since I was out there. The last time was maybe 2-3 years ago. But yeah, the aroma out of this beer, from that perspective is very, very nice actually. So yeah, this one gets a big thumbs up from me in that regard. So yeah, the malty backbone of this one is pretty much as you would expect. Yeah, a little bit of woodiness underneath, a little bit of nuttiness, lovely kind of big brown bready notes, bit of bread crust, sweet caramel, toasty kind of McVitie's digestive qualities in there, a bit more of a toasty brown sugary element as well. But you know, that is what you would expect from the malty side of things in this. So yeah, I really like how this beer goes about its business, that's for sure. But yeah, lovely stuff from Captain Lawrence once again. So yeah, I think that works very, very well. So on the hoppy side of things then, with this beer, you can definitely smell, I think the Bravo, the Bravo's the thing that stands out to me. I mean, Centennial and Citra are, you know, I know these hops fairly well, but you can certainly smell with this beer. You get a wee bit more earthiness out of it, and that's something that I think works quite well with this style, of course, because of that sweeter malty backbone it has, but you certainly do get more of a kind of herbal quality out of this one. So I do wonder if the Bravo hop is the one that's being used as the early edition hop. Remember, early edition hops are the ones that give you the bitterness as you go over the course of your wort boil. I think with red ales it's usually about 90 minutes. Can be longer, of course, but usually as you go through the first hour or so of your wort boil, this is the kind of bittering hop stage, if you like. You've got a progressive trade-off from the beginning with the hops. The hops in the beginning will give you all bittering qualities, but then as you go further into the wort boil with it, you get a trade-off giving you more kind of flavour and aroma properties, and usually within the last half hour, that's when you start to get majority kind of flavour aroma profiles off them, and then of course dry hopping comes afterwards too. But I suspect that just going from the way the green component in this beer is, I think the Bravo is most likely to be the bittering hop in this one. Although there could be something else like Columbus or whatever. A bit surprised from the aroma of this. I would probably think it has a wee bit of Cascade in it, because it gives you a wee bit of that kind of figgy, plum sugary sort of thing that Cascade can give you. But yeah, green component of this one is definitely a little bit more earthy, a good little bit of herbal quality to it, some nice floral aromaticity, and also some lighter grassy, grassy, citrusy elements there as well. So yeah, I really like how the aroma of this one goes about its business. So yeah, big big kind of big green components to this, and I do like that. Although you can smell the malty character, it's quite well balanced with the malty side of things, and I think the woody undertone that you get really suits it well as well. But fruity side of things, then for me, it's interesting because with this beer, it actually comes across, you can smell a bit of the kind of mango in this one from the Citra, of course, and you do get a bit of the kind of lemony zest from the Centennial, but at the same time, you get a few elements like, a kind of sultana type note, like a dried white green grapey sort of thing. You do get that in this beer. So yeah, there is a wee bit of that kind of sultana type note. You do get a wee bit of the kind of more pungent grapefruity type thing as well, but that's very, very minimal. It comes across as quite mellow and juicy. But yeah, mangoes. It almost has a little bit of a kind of tangerine orangey type note as well. I do wonder if that could be Bravo, but you can certainly smell a wee bit of a kind of lemon limey sort of thing, and there is a wee bit of pungency to that lemony note, which is the Centennial, of course, in this beer. But yeah, the fruity side of things is quite interesting, I think, because you can detect elements of the Citra and the Centennial in this, but it still smells a wee bit orangey, which is something you'd normally associate more with the likes of Amarillo or Mosaic, Azaka, even Sabro these days, and Pacifica from New Zealand, Mandarina Bavaria, whatever. But yeah, the aroma of this beer is pretty damn nice actually. So spend a little bit of time to ponder that aroma over, brain fart. But yeah, I think it's about time that we have a taste of this beer and see how we go. So yeah, this one is the Red Commander, a 6.5% red IPA from Captain Lawrence Brewing Company in Elmsford, near White Plains, in the kind of southeast of New York State over in America. Let's get stuck into this one. Slàinte, skål, and cheers. Yeah, that is pretty damn nice actually. Again, it's what you'd expect of the style. A little bit more kind of grainy and bready than I remember them being. Some of them can be really oily and sweet and things. Some of them can be a little bit more kind of bready and grainy. But this one starts to lean a little bit more towards the grainy and bready sort of things, but there's a nice bitterness to it as well. That's my first impression of this, but I think this is a beer that's going to mellow out quite nicely. Thumbs up to Captain Lawrence, and nice to try one of their beers again after over a year, I think it is. Yeah, that is pretty damn nice. So let's get the rest of it into the glass, and there we go. Yeah, that is pretty good. Let me just line this back up for you again. I need to realign my camera. I think it's a bit too far over, but we'll sort that after this video. But yeah, lovely stuff, this one, and it really does have a nice little bit of residual bitterness to it. I've been having some really nice West Coast IPAs recently, but they're just not as bitter as they used to be, and it's been annoying me a little bit. But this one certainly has a wee bit of that bitter backbone to it. So this must be one of their older recipes. It must be a pre-New England recipe, this one, come to think of it. But yeah. But yeah, I do like how this goes together. So I think we can sort of figure it out with this one then. So yeah, let's try and break down the aroma for you a little bit then. So straight away, across the middle of your palate, you can feel a little bit of a kind of woody backbone to this one. You can feel that, but on top of that, very, very quickly, it becomes very grainy and sort of brown bready. I do like that. It does get a little bit drier the further you go into the aftertaste, and I think that suits the kind of bitterness that the beer has too, come to think of it. But yeah, nice kind of smooth woody backbone in there, a bit of a kind of grainy element to it as well, like I said. But then yeah, on top of that, you certainly get some really nice bready characteristics. So yeah, on top of the kind of sort of grainy bread crusty backbone and the woody elements incidentally come out mainly in the front half of that middle third of your palate. And then on top of that, as I say, you've got a bit of a kind of bread crusty, sort of more bread crusty quality, and at either end of that middle third of your palate you can feel that the bread crust is a little bit more intense. But on top of that, you get a smoother and slightly thicker kind of brown bready sort of thing out of this one, which I really like. So yeah. Yeah. So the brown bready notes that come out of this beer are very, very nice actually. So yeah, I really like how this beer goes about its business in that sense as well. I think the more that you drink of this one, the more the bread kind of thickens out and the beer just starts to sweeten up. I always liked a bit of sweetness in the red ales rather than being too grainy and too bready, and this one does build a little bit of sweetness the further into the flavour that you go. But sitting on top of that nice kind of bready layer that it has, you can feel there's a sort of circle or an oval in the middle of your palate, in that middle third of your tongue, and you can feel right in the dead centre you get a sort of concentrated caramel in this one. It smells, it tastes a little bit more caramelised than things. So maybe this one has had a slightly longer wort boil than 90 minutes, and I wouldn't be, going by the colour of this, I wouldn't put it past them to have it to boil it a little bit longer than that. And it certainly tastes there's a wee bit of a kind of almost treacly element to it in there. But yeah, nice concentrated brown sugars in the middle of the palate. As you move further out from that, it gets a little bit more, as we say, more like an oily caramel. And then further out from that, as you push out towards the edges of the palate, there's a nice, as we say, there's a nice kind of roasty, toasty, brown sugary element to this one, which I certainly like. So yeah, the way that this one goes together is very, very nice actually. So big thumbs up to Captain Lawrence on the malt base, and as you can feel that kind of roasty, toasty, brown sugary element as you go further out towards the edge of the palate. There's a little bit of that McVitie's digestive biscuit sort of thing to this, but it really comes across to me as more of a roasty, toasty brown sugar actually. So yeah. But yeah, the roasty toasty side of things, the roasty toasty side of things in this one is quite nice. That wasn't something that I really picked up on in the aroma, but like I say, further you go into the aftertaste, it oils up and it mellows out and sweetens up a little bit as well, which I really like. But yeah, I think that covers the middle third of the palate quite well on this one. But yeah, on that border region between middle third and back third of your palate, again you get a little bit of a bready build up and a wee bit of a bread crusty sort of thing. But then yeah, the back third of your palate is a lovely kind of really toasty, you do get almost a little bit of a toasty bread crust thing underneath. You can feel a slightly sweeter brown bready character in above that, and it's a bit more grainy. Then on top of that, you have a nice, you have a little bit more of a kind of, you do get a little bit more of a kind of yeasty element out of this one. You can feel those more airy, yeasty kind of qualities out of the beer. So it's like a sweeter brown bread that you get on top of the back third of your tongue. So when you start at the back of the palate, you can feel the flavour is nice and tall like this, but as you move further forward, it condenses down. Then as you go into the middle third of your palate, the flavours condense together a little bit more, and it's just nice and thick. But yeah, I really like how this one goes together. So yeah, the flavour profile in this one on the malty side of things, I think, is really nice. It starts off a little bit more grainy and bitter, I think, and it's got a wee bit of toastiness to it, but it mellows out the more that you drink of it. But on the hoppy side of things, then it's kind of what I would have expected from the aroma actually. So back corners of the palate, you certainly have a nice little bit of earthiness in there, and again I think this is the Bravo. But as you move further forward on the beer, you get a little bit more of a kind of, you do get a little bit more of a kind of herbal quality, and as you reach the front corners of the palate, it's certainly got a wee bit more of a kind of spicy floral aromaticity. I wouldn't be surprised if this beer did have a little bit of, Columbus in the base actually, because it certainly gives you a wee bit of spiciness. But you do have to remember that all of these high alpha acid hops, if you add them in the early stages of the wort boil, they are capable of giving you that big kind of spicy green component. So I'm not 100% sure about that, but there's something just distinctive about the spiciness in this beer. And as I say, I suspect maybe it could be a bit of Columbus or something like that. But yeah, around the front curve of the palate, you've got a little bit of a lighter kind of grassy element to this one, and a wee bit of a, as I say, a little bit of a lighter kind of grassy sort of zesty kind of note there, and that'll be the Centennial, I think, that's mainly giving you that. So yeah. But yeah, the green component on this one, I think, is it's nicely done, and it suits the rest of the beer. But let's focus on that front third of your palate then. So border region between front third and middle third of your palate, again, you can feel that sort of kind of bready build up there, a bit more of a kind of bread crusty quality. Then the base of the front third of your palate, you can feel there's a little bit more of a, kind of brown bready note there. And I'd say the brown bread is a bit sweeter on the base of that front third of your palate, but it still gives you a wee bit of graininess. But on top of that, of course, you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters roll their way out of the beer. And so, yeah, it's interesting because at the back of that front third of your palate, you certainly get a bit of a really strong citrusy character to this one. And I suspect that would be the citra. It is almost a little bit grapefruity, like it really is that pungent. So it's a little bit more like a grapefruity note. But as you move further forward from that, you get a wee bit of a passion fruity note to it almost, but that's quite minimal. But then you can feel the more oily mango character that you would expect from the citra there as well. But you do get a wee bit of that kind of sultana-y, dried sultana type flavour out of this one, just sitting underneath that I was talking about in the aroma. You certainly can pick that up a little bit, but as you move further forward in this one, it certainly has like a wee hint of a kind of orangey character. But then just behind, as you move into that more oily front half of the front third of your tongue, you certainly get a wee bit more of an oily kind of brown sugary, not brown sugary, a little bit more of a kind of oily tangerine sort of note to it. Then right behind the kind of front tip of the tongue, you can feel that strong kind of lemony note, which is the Centennial. 100% that's the Centennial, but the Citra is going to contribute to that, definitely. Citra does have its kind of lemon limey type qualities that you can get too. So yeah, it really is interesting how all of that plays out in this beer. But yeah, it goes from grapefruit at the back to a more oily mango. And remember, when this is a more brown sugary orientated malt base, the hops are going to behave a little bit more oily in the fruity character, if that makes sense, than they would with the kind of juicy notes, if you like, that you would find in a more wheaty, oaty malt base as you have with the New Englands. But yeah, as you go forward on this one, I think it goes together really nicely. So yeah, I like how this one goes about its business. That's for sure. So thumbs up to Captain Lawrence for this. They've pulled this off really nicely, but I like the slight citrusy edge that this beer has too. But yeah, it's good. Certainly is very good. But yeah, I think we can leave it at that for the flavour section. Let's round off the review then with the mouthfeel. So yeah, so for me, the mouthfeel of this one, it's mid-bodied, it's right in the middle of the spectrum. The carbonation is very, very smooth. It does have a wee bit of an oily slickness to it, this beer, which you would want from a red IPA. But yeah, it's pretty much middle of the road, this one. Quite a sessionable beer, this, although, let's say, I never session beer. I like trying different beers once, and usually I never drink them again, apart from a select few, like Urquell or, Urquell or, say, Lefer or something like that. But yeah, this one is pretty nice and solid that way. But yeah, in terms of the hoppy bitterness and things, I think this one's got about 70-ish IBUs to it, maybe 80. This one does have a proper old school bitterness to it, but don't think it's the most bitter one that I've come across. But I think 70 or 80 IBUs in this one wouldn't be too far away from the truth. But always take my IBU counts with a pinch of salt. This is my weakest point of beer reviewing the feel. But the malt base in this one, as you say, has a bit of a grainy undertone to it, a lovely smoothness and slight sweetness in the middle. Then you get the proper kind of brown sugary sweet notes on the top. Then, with that, you also get some nice oily, kind of juicy, fruity characters to the beer as well. So yeah, the fruity notes that you get out of this one really kind of just add a wee bit more depth to the beer also. But yeah, this is an interesting one. In terms of the red ales and stuff like this that I've had, it's certainly got a bit more bitterness and bite to it. I think it's not the sweetest and oiliest of ones that I've come across, but I think it's solidly done, and you can't really ask for much more than that these days. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this review then. So this one was the Red Commander, a 6.5% red IPA from Captain Lawrence Brewing Company in Elmsford, near White Plains to the north of Manhattan in New York State, in New England, over in America. Nice to have these guys on the channel once again. Nice to have another red IPA. So I hope you guys have enjoyed my take on this one. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Captain Lawrence. And we will see about returning to these guys again at some point in the near future. Exactly when, I don't know, but this is one of the beers that they do that just kind of caught my eye, if you like. So yeah, thank you again for watching. Check out my social media, and I'll see you guys again soon. Slàinte, skål, cheers, and see you in the next one.